One of my favorite movies is Pixar's WALL-E. If you haven't seen it, it is a kid's movie, but it's written by first-rate philosophers, I'm convinced, like most Pixar movies. And it's a profound reflection on what happens when human beings are turned literally into consumers and themselves become abstracted from nature in their own nature. Both, as everyone who's seen the movie knows, it begins with this horrible dystopian picture of a trashed planet. And I begin that way in my defense of nature because I will plug WALL-E whenever I can. Everyone should see it. But I begin with that dystopian picture of a trashed planet. And the question to ask, the obvious one, is who wants this? Nobody wants to see our planet covered with trash. Now, most people think that that's an overstatement, and that's because they haven't visited a landfill. And I have visited a landfill on a couple of occasions, and you really need to do that. It makes you realize how much waste we produce. Now, what does that have to do with our understanding of the Catholic faith? Well, this is one way I get my students to see a kind of a connection. What if during Lent next year, all Christians, all Catholics in America actually ate only the foods that were good for them, and not processed packaged foods, but you actually go to the part of the store where there's food sitting out there that grew in the ground, and that's all you eat. You wouldn't be hungry at all. You'd be eating good and healthy stuff. And you wouldn't eat anything that was processed. And so I asked my students, what would happen if all Christians did that? And the answer would be, well, we'd be a lot healthier, right? Because we're not eating all the junk food. And I asked them, what would happen to the economy and the amount of trash we produced? And two things would happen. The economy would crash, and we would produce far less trash. How are those two related? It's clear that in producing this much trash, we're actually violating one of the four cardinal virtues of temperance. Temperance is the desire to moderate our relationship to earthly goods. And so if we actually followed the church's teaching in regard to virtue, we wouldn't create that much trash, but we'd also crash the economy. And that brings in another aspect of a deeper reflection so we can understand what are the results of our actions. Do we really want an economy that's based on overconsumption, that quite literally depends on us producing more and more waste and consuming more and more things that are not good for us? So if you start to look at it that way, a concern for the environment isn't some kind of a wacko thing of the left, some kind of tree-hugging, ground-worshiping, nature-worshiping concern. It's a concern about virtue, how we treat the goods of the earth, and we ought to remember that, again, we don't want really to trash creation. Creation is called good. It is supposed to manifest the glory of God the Creator. And if you go to a landfill, it's really hard to believe that that's what we're doing.